Hare Krishna, Madhumay Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Good morning, everyone. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we'll continue reading today. Three types of Vaishnavas. To complete our understanding, the three kinds of Vaishnavas in relation to the holy names should be mentioned. Uttama Adhikari, he is a pure devotee who sees Krishna everywhere and knows that everything rests in him. His life is completely centered around the holy name. Thus, he is able to taste the pure nectar of the holy name. One should serve him and learn from him. Madhyama Adhikari. He is aware of the importance of the devotees of the Lord and is always seeking their association. He knows Krishna's position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that of the living entities as his eternal servants. He feels compassion for the ignorant and averts the company of atheists. Because he is a preacher who is very dear to Krishna, one should seek his company. Kanishta Adhikari. He is also called Vaishnava Praya, next to a Vaishnava. He is a weak reflection, the shadow of a devotee. His faith is meager, and although he worships the deity of the Lord, is not engaged in any service to the Vaishnavas. He chants on the Namavas days, and one should offer him obeisances in the mind. The importance of associating with devotees. Strikingly enough, the very first offense refers to the blaspheming of devotees. Why are devotees so important for our chanting of Hare Krishna? The answer is that Sri Krishna personally appears in the heart of a pure Vaishnava. Together with bhakti, devotion, Hladini, his pleasure giving potency, and Sambit, his knowledge giving potency, by associating with such a pure Vaishnava, one also receives this bhakti. It can even be felt how bhakti exudes from the body of such a devotee. I'll never forget when I bowed down my sinful head before Srila Prabhupada for the first time. It was at the London airport at 2 o'clock in the morning. The flight was delayed and I was very tired. In those early days, I had many difficulties in the temple. I seriously wondered whether I should really continue to associate with the devotees at all, as I had many bad habits and my false ego was often hurt by them. I wanted to make my decision dependent on the meeting with Srila Prabhupada. Suddenly, I heard the devotees about Jai Prabhupada. I could not see him yet, but I observed some special influence and energy filled excitement at the customs behind a frosted window pane. That could only be Srila Prabhupada. Then he turned around the corner. Such strong effulgence emanated from Srila Prabhupada that it appeared like thousands of suns rising simultaneously. This is my only way to describe the scene. Previously, I had made up my mind to look at him as long as possible, but now I just prostrated myself on the ground. I remember descriptions in the Bible of the burning thorn bush, in which mm, in which God appeared, and that it was not recommended to stare into it, for one would be blinded. The influence of Srila Prabhupada was so strong that I foolishly thought of protecting myself. When I finally dared to look up, I looked right into his smiling face, which seemed to say a big welcome. Srila Prabhupada had mercifully stopped to greet me. When he passed, I got up, my eyes stained with tears, and I knew now my material life is over. I could feel how the bhakti energy exuded from the body of a pure Vaishnava. It is said that there are three objects which can help us to attain bhakti. Since they have come into direct contact with a pure devotee, his food remnants, the water which has washed his lotus feet, and the dust from his lotus feet. They should be especially worshipped and accepted. If one is able to catch and hold this bhakti energy in his heart and develop faith in it, then bhakti will evolve as a matter of course and bestow ecstasy. In this way, devotion will swiftly appear in the heart, causing one to chant, and then, by the power of the holy name, all good qualities will manifest in the devotee. There are also very pragmatic reasons for associating with devotees. They remind us of Krishna by talking about him or engaging us in his service and by inspiring and sometimes correcting us. In other words, association with genuine devotees can help us advance on the path of bhakti. Causes of Vaishnava aparadhs. The next question is how Vaishnava aparadhs, offenses against devotees, can originate. There are several causes. For example, judging devotees by material standards, feeling envious of them, or finding faults with them. But the main cause is asatsanga, undesired association with other persons, because in the association of materialist we lose bhakti. Asatsanga can be subdivided into two classes: portentous association with women, that is contrary to the Vedic tradition. This means to associate with women other than one's wife outside of a Vedic marriage, just to satisfy one's senses or simply to desire sensual association. The same principle applies, of course, to men who have association with lusty men outside their Vedic marriage. Another undesirable habit is to keep the company of a husband who is dominated by strong sensual desire for his wife, and in the same principle, it is undesirable to keep the company of a wife who is dominated by strong sensual desires for her husband. Second, association with four kinds of non devotees. Mayavadis, who believe that the Lord and the living entity are temporary and that the Lord's transcendental deity form is material, and who think that in the end all is one. Hypocrites, who pretend to be devotees in order to make a living. People who just hanker after sense enjoyment and have an envious or quarrelsome character. And atheists who do not believe in any form of God. These two types of asat sangha are the cause for criticizing devotees. One should even avoid the association of those who criticize devotees for not wanting to keep the company of non devotees. But what about devotees living outside of a temple community? Don't they keep almost exclusively the company of non devotees? The scriptures are practical, not fanatical. They discuss three ways of association: to give association, to take association, and to have social dealings. If one happens to be in a situation where he cannot give association, that is, talk about Krishna conscious subjects, he can externally behave normally according to social customs and inwardly keeps one's spiritual vision. However, one should avoid to take association, that is, to allow oneself to become influenced by non devotee values. Our appreciation for the devotees will decrease by undesirable association, asat sangha, so that sometime or other we may commit offenses. And these offenses can completely destroy our bhakti. Let us therefore seriously endeavor to avoid criticizing others. To do so, we have to learn to become tolerant and also to grant everybody what we claim for ourselves, namely to be accepted as we are. Three kinds of Vaishnava aparadhs. What about criticism and blasphemy in the mind? Srila Prabhupada explains in the Srimad Bhagavatam that in Kali Yuga, sinful activities performed only in the mind are not counted as offenses. Nonetheless, three kinds of offenses have to be mentioned: offenses in the mind, offenses with words, offenses through activities. Generally, offenses develop in the mind and are expressed later on a gross level. First one thinks negatively about another, then one can find harsh words to express one's feeling of dislike for the other person. And eventually, when that is not enough, one can confront a person personally and get into an argument or even physical fight. In this way, offenses arise successively, first in thinking, then in feeling, and finally in acting. The Skanda Purana wants us to be aware of the following offenses against Vaishnavas, which include offenses committed with body, mind, and words.
Maybe 1 second, Mataji, maybe we can stop.
Okay.
Spata, you can summarize, we can start tomorrow.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah, so what we learned today, first we saw the different kinds of three different types of devotees, that is Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, and Uttam Adhikari. So Kanishta Adhikari, they like we have studied these three categories of devotees most of the Srila Prabhupada books like Nectar of in the Nectar of Devotion, Ishopanishad, then Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. What the Kanishta Adhikari, they just come to temple, they worship, but their faith in this worship and faith in other devotional service is not very strong. They can easily divert from this path very easily. Then the Madhyam Adhikari, their faith is strong, but they are almost not very good in argumenting. When they present some scriptural injunctions, they are not very good in argument and defeating others. At Uttama Adhikari, like the highest the highest position of devotees, who see everyone equally, the Vidyavana Sampane, Brahmane Gabhyastini Suni Sevacha Pakecha Pandita Samadarshina. So Uttamadhikari people, they see everyone very equally. They see a dog or a very like highly elevated, a saintly person or dog, same, because they see the spiritual spark in the body of the living entity. They know Krishna is as Paramatma, he's present in everyone's body, so they treat everyone equally. They have realized the Bhagavan very nicely. That's why they see everyone equally. They're the Uttamadhikari people. Then we saw like how we know we commit, like previously we have learned what are Vaishnava aparas. But today we have learned why we usually commit Vaishnava aparas, why that tendency of doing Vaishnava aparas, from where it comes, like from Asat Sangha. If we associate with non-devotees a lot, we develop that tendency to criticize devotees, and how we see like the different way we can do the Vaishnava pra, like in the mind, body, or words. In Kali Yuga, if we do something like in the mind, that is not counted as aparadh. But we see when we think something bad about devotees, obviously it comes in our action and words. So we have to avoid that, those kind of things. Like this Vaishnava aparadh is kind of like mad elephants. How a mad elephant is not controlled by anything. He can destroy everything. So if we do Vaishnava aparadha or Bhakti Lata, we have to protect our Bhakti Lata very nicely. If we do Vaishnava aparadha, our Bhakti Lata will die. So we have to take care of our Bhakti Lata very carefully, and we should avoid doing Vaishnava aparadha. We should not criticize devotees. Even though we should also not criticize non-devotees, because one day, maybe in one life, they will come back to Krishna. They will start devotional service. So whether it is devotees or non-devotees, we should not criticize anyone. Yeah, that's my realization.